What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Decipher podcast. I'm Dennis Fisher. I'm here with my colleague Lindsey Donnell-Welch and our buddy Brian Donohue from Red Canary. We are here to do a little Black Hat USA preview and talk about some of the sessions we're excited about and some of the sessions we have no idea what they're actually about. We did this for our RSA a couple of months ago. It was a lot of fun. So we're going to dig through the agenda a little bit, talk a little bit about all these sessions. And it's RSA had the overall AI vibe, which we talked about a lot on that podcast. This one definitely does too, Lindsey. Like, I was digging through the agenda the last couple of days. There is no shortage of AI and ML and all of that nonsense in these talks this year.
There's a lot for sure. Everything from, the CISO perspective, as you see, there's one with Microsoft and kind of what they're doing there, all the way down to kind of looking at like the nitty gritty with LLMs and things like that. So They have the full spectrum there.
I expected all the LLM AI talks. What I was kind of surprised by, I mean, not super surprised, but it stood out that there's a lot of cyber insurance talks as well.
Kind of timely, given what happened a couple of weeks ago as we're recording this with the CrowdStrike incident and the Azure outage. So there's been quite a bit of chatter about insurance claims. I don't know how that's all going to shake out, but we'll see. So I haven't been to Black Hat. Lindsey, I know you went last year. Brian, did you go?
I honestly haven't been to Black Hat in years.
Yeah, I haven't been since 2019, pre-COVID.
I don't even remember the last time I went. Maybe 2017. Like, I certainly haven't been since I've been working at Red Canary, which has been like 6 years now.
Oh, wow. So this will be your first time in that long. Okay.
Yeah, there's been a couple of years where I was supposed to go that I've kind of like weaseled my way out of it. Like last year I was going to go, but I was going to have to like fly from vacation to there. And I was just like, I don't want to do that.
Nope.
Yeah, that would be brutal.
Yeah. So what was it like last year, Lindsey, since we haven't been there in like 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, last year was actually my first time going post-COVID, which, so, it was nice to get back on the scene and actually see people in person. I remember last year, what stuck out to me was CISO was there and they were doing their big push for secure by design. That's, it's something they've been talking about for a couple of years, but like this was
Right.
like, it was almost like their launching pad where they were like, this is our big thing, our big initiative. There was not as much AI stuff at all. I think because that whole explosion really came about it was just starting at that point, like the general availability or whatnot of ChatGPT. But so, I think after that, we're going to see like a ton more this year. But, I think it was kind of just the same as always. Like, what excites me about these shows is you get to see like these really cool exploits or threat vectors or vulnerabilities. And, looking over the agenda for this year, there's a lot of new 0 days that people are going to be uncovering and things like that. And that's something that you just don't really get at RSA as much. So that's something I really love about Black Hat and DEF CON.
It's also like a much tighter schedule, which is nice. Like as I was reading through it, I was like, oh yeah, they cram all of this into 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we did this for the RSA podcast, it took me hours to read through all of the talks. And in the end, like I wasn't able to like conceptualize like, where are these talks happening? What is the schedule? Am I going to be able to go to these? For Black Hat, like it's really just a matter of like, where are all of these rooms in Mandalay, right? Like it's just much, much more manageable. And like, spoiler alert, I was far less confused by a lot of these titles, which is funny. Like for the RSA thing, it's like, I was just like, what on earth are you talking about? Now, part of that was just bad titles. And part of that was all of the cryptography stuff at RSA. So like a lot of what we were talking about last time was just people fumbling titles and us like kind of poking at them for it. Here, if I don't understand something, it's because of my own ignorance.
Yeah. I agree with that, Brian. When I was looking through these, I was like, okay, I don't really see any titles that look bad, really. Like everything looks like really like it could be a really interesting talk, or silly or whatnot. But I will say, and this is what I faced the first time I went to Black Hat, like however long ago, like just there were definitely titles where I was like, okay, if this was my first time going here, I would have no idea what this is about. And, however many years in I'm now, I still somewhat don't know. So for some of them. So there was that element a little bit, but you're always going to get that at Black Hat.
Yeah. I mean, I was like 24 the first time I went, and like I still have lingering trauma from some of the stories that Dennis made me cover at Threat Post. I can no longer remember what they were about, but there were stories that took me like hours upon hours to try to figure out what on earth these people were talking about.
I remember one of those, and there's a similar talk in this agenda, Brian. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see it. The still one.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I was looking at that a minute ago, and I was like, I can't do this.
I remember seeing you like walk out of that press conference for some baseband talk that was it Karsten Knoll?
I think it was Karsten Knoll that gave it. Yeah.
Yeah, you looked like you had seen like your own ghost. You had just you were extremely traumatized. Yeah. All right. So let's go through. Let's start with some of the talks we're actually interested in seeing. Lindsey, why don't you go first and throw one out there?
Okay. I feel like this is going to be on for across the board, but the Project Zero one is always a good one. That is Project Zero, 10 years of making zero-day hard. That's going to be presented by Natalie Silvanovich with Google. And I always feel like, she'll be talking about what, Google Project Zero has gone on 10 years. I think it launched in 2014. And so it's going to have a rundown of kind of the security bugs that they've discovered, and how defense has evolved, and how the zero-day landscape has evolved. And I think 0 days are just interesting to everyone because of, how analyzing those types of things reveals different things about the threat landscape, or doesn't reveal things about the threat landscape. There's just so much in there. So, make 0 day hard has always been Google's motto, but I think this is going to be a good kind of analysis of where they've gone in the past 10 years and have broader implications about where we are now in 2024 with 0 days, and kind of how threat actors are approaching those.
Yeah, this dovetails nicely with when we talked about Katie Musaurus's talk at RSA. And it's like, if Katie Musaurus is one side of the like normalizing and bringing vulnerability disclosure stuff to the forefront, I kind of feel like Google Project Zero is the other side of that.
Yeah.
As a sidebar, we were just talking about Karsten Knoll's S7 talk, Breaking My Brain. Back when I was covering it, like those Project Zero blogs back in the day were just like so far above my pay grade, trying to figure out what on earth those people were talking about. So yeah, I am super excited about that talk, and it made my list as well.
Yeah, mine too. I remember going to the one that they did 5 years ago, the last time I was at Black Hat, sort of the same idea, 5 years of making 0 day hard or whatever. And I don't think it was Natalie. I can't recall who it was that gave the talk, but it was really good because it wasn't super deep dive technical. It was more the broad strokes of here are the approaches we're taking to try and break the malware ecosystem, all those sorts of things, which, are more digestible to a general audience and give you more information that you can actually use, rather than here's this insane thing that Tavis Ormandy spent 9 days, discovering, and you will never have the ability to do this, but it's really cool. And we did it, and you can't too. But yeah. All right, Brian, what's up on your list?
So, man, I have way too many on here. So one thing I like about Black Hat, which like totally flies in the face of my general like approach to writing about computer security, is these talks that like have no real bearing in the corporate world. Like I try to, like, when I'm trying to be helpful, I'm like, don't pay attention to that stuff to the people that I talk to. Like that doesn't matter to you, but it's one of the things that makes me love Black Hat. So I'm looking forward to this low energy to higher energy, hacking nearby EV chargers over Bluetooth. And it's just like I always love having these at Black Hat. I want to hear about like these crazy talks that I'm amazed what these people did, but there is no practical application of them in any way in my professional or personal life, right? Like I want to see these hacks where it's like just for fun, right? Like you throw up your skull and crossbones hacker crew logo, and like these are the talks I want to see at Black Hat, even though it's extremely difficult for me to justify spending $3,000 to go see them.
I love those too. There's always been at Black Hat sort of these. I wouldn't call that stunt hacking. The the automotive hacking stuff that like Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek did for several years. I remember years ago sitting in the front row and Barnaby Jack did the ATM jackpotting talk and just literally made an ATM spit out. It wasn't bills; it was actually tickets to the IO Active Party, which was very cool. But those kind of things, I love those too, Brian, because yeah, they may not be the most practical things and may not really matter to most people, but they're fun as hell. And that's
The Barnaby Jack talk, I think was the year before I got into InfoSec, or maybe like right when I got in.
Yeah.
But the whole story behind it is hilarious. Like he like threw an ATM in the back of his car and like drove it up from Southern California or wherever he got it.
He did.
I've watched that talk on video, but I was not there in person at the time.
Yeah. Me and Ryan were sitting in the front row. You probably saw my giant head like blocking the camera. And
Yeah, that one looks really cool though. I don't think I've seen so far like any types of attacks against EV chargers, so that's not something I would have thought of. But I know I think that stemmed from one of those hacking contests that they had earlier in the year too. So I think this is kind of the analysis from that, and yeah, I'm excited to see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so for me, you guys both grabbed a couple that I was interested in, but another one, and this is one I probably won't really understand what they're talking about, but it's Secure Shells and Shambles, and it's HD Moore and Rob King. HD Moore, who I think we've all interviewed many times, is one of the smartest people on the planet. And when he starts talking, first of all, he talks very fast, and he's so much smarter than me. So I find it very hard to keep up with what he's talking about. Even if he's just explaining what he had for dinner the night before, I'm just like, I don't really understand. So I'm not sure how much I would actually get out of this. If I'm going to go, I don't know exactly what I'll get out of it. But if HD is doing research, he's one of the guys that, you pay attention to what he's doing, like Barnaby Jack in years past, or Charlie and Chris, or, R Snake or somebody like that. If he's on the agenda, you go and listen to what he has to say, because it's probably extremely interesting.
Yeah, I had that listed as my best title on the agenda. I didn't even click through to see what it's about. I will go if I'm available to go.
Yeah. Anything about Secure Shell too, so he's going to be good.
Definitely. All right, Lindsey. What's next for you?
Okay. So, speaking of AI and LLMs, of the kind of AI LLM track talks, I think the one I was most excited for was Practical LLM Security Takeaways from a Year in the Trenches. And that's by Rich Herring, who's with NVIDIA. And he, he's really understands what's going on in this space. He's been, around in this area for a while. So I think if there's someone I'm going to go talk to about, LLM security, it's going to be him. And then also, I was reading over the session description, and a lot of the security research nowadays focuses on kind of the LLM biases or the security of LLMs themselves, but kind of ignores the applications that are built on around them and how that kind of branches out. So I think that's really what his focus is going to be on in this session. And, so yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's a session that's kind of going to really cut through the AI FUD a little bit and look at the true risks and what's happening in that area.
Yeah, there's going to be more than enough FUD being thrown around Vegas next week with this stuff. But the good news, or the good thing I think about Black Hat, is that most of the people there, and especially the speakers, are people that have actually done this work. They're not just speculating. It's not pie in the sky stuff. They know what they're talking about. So at least there's going to be some practicality to it, for the most part.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Donohue, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to try and do something complicated here, and I'm going to put 3 talks on the board right now.
Oh God.
So, the first, and they're all related. So the first is breaching AWS accounts through shadow resources. So I'm super intrigued about this because there's this interplay between identity and cloud stuff that I think is super, super important. And I obviously the identity situation in InfoSec right now is kind of problematic. Like, working identity is leading to a lot of very, very bad and costly breaches. But I think that the right way to do identity is known. Like, the problem is to some extent solved. The question is how far are you willing to go to make sure that your identity is really hardened, right? Like these hardware keys, if everyone just used hardware keys, like YubiKey stuff, a lot of these problems go away, but they're really hard to implement.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how the pendulum swings as people figure out identity, and that gets really, really hardened, kind of in the way that email sort of has in recent years, whether or not the pendulum swings back for initial access to more vulnerability exploitation. So the other 2 that I was looking at are the GCP Jenga Tower, hacking millions of Google servers with a single package, and then kicking in the door to the cloud, exploiting cloud provider vulnerabilities for initial access. I'm just very curious to see over the next couple of years, as people get better at cloud security, better at identity management, identity configuration, whether or not adversaries have to sort of go back to more vulnerability exploitation, which honestly, if that's the case, good, because it's much harder. It's much harder to find an exploit, a vulnerability, than it is to, just find some password and log in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. It's weird to say, but yes, we want people trying to exploit vulnerabilities instead of, just hoovering up passwords and credentials off the internet.
Yeah. Yeah. The breaching AWS accounts with shadow resources talk looked really good. That was one of mine too. I think that'll be a good one to follow.
Yeah. All right. So the next one that I'm interested in, and this is going to be a hard one to talk about, but Moxie Marlinspike is doing the second day opening keynote, which it's not a traditional keynote. I guess it's him talking to Jeff Moss, the DEF CON Black Hat founder. And for younger folks who might not know who Moxie is, he hasn't really been publicly on the InfoSec scene in quite a while. I mean, it's probably been several years. I mean, he does things here and there, but he founded Signal, developed that protocol, did a whole bunch of really wild stuff before that. Google him and look at his crazy sailing trips. And there's a story he wrote, I don't know, it's probably 10 or 12 years ago now, I don't remember, about almost drowning in the San Francisco Bay.
Because he tried to scuttle a sailboat. Which
is
the
wild.
most thing I've ever heard. That has to be illegal.
You
could just scuttle a boat in the San Francisco Bay.
Well, I think he was trying to move it for a friend or something like that. I don't remember the details, but it's harrowing. The details are crazy. But there's also, he's done an insane amount of behind the scenes security work, and is one of those guys that when you speak to other researchers about, they sort of speak in reverence about him. I don't know exactly what he's going to be talking about with Jeff. It might just be a broad conversation, but I guarantee it'll be fascinating.
Yeah, I remember one of the first Black Hats I went to. So his kind of fame in the hacker space was kind of waning, I guess, when I joined the InfoSec industry. A lot of the work he did predates my time here. But I remember one of my first Black Hats, Mike Momoso and I sat down at a bar, and 3 seats down, Moxie Marlinspike and God, why am I not remembering his name? The Apple hacker guy that did the car hacking.
Charlie Miller?
Yeah, him and Charlie Miller were sitting over there, and Mike just whispered to me, "Turn your phone off." Because both of them were the most famous, iPhone hackers in the world at the time.
Yeah.
Oh God. That's great. Yeah. That one, that will be good for sure. Especially kind of the privacy implications of that they'll be discussing, and, everything that's happened with data privacy and, everything there over the past year. So
I also laughed because it's taking place in Microsoft, or not, sorry, in Michelob Ultra Arena.
Oh my God. I didn't even notice that.
That's great.
Unreal. Everything is sponsored, Brian. Everything is sponsored. All right, Lindsey, what's up next for you?
So I also also on my list was relationships matter, reconstructing the organizational and social structure of a ransomware gang. I don't think, anything really huge is going to come out of that, but I think, a lot has come out over the past years about the inner workings of ransomware groups, and understanding that is really pivotal to how we kind of approach and defend against ransomware as an overall threat vector. So I always like to see a talk like this, and my hope is that they'll focus specifically on how groups regroup or rebrand after takedown efforts or disruption efforts in particular, because that's something that we haven't seen a ton of on kind of the back end there. So that stood out to me. I think it's two people from Indiana University, but so I'm curious to see what they bring to the table there.
Yeah, that should be really cool. That was definitely on my list too, because Brian, you've done some work on this type of stuff, like looking at the structures of these cybercrime groups and that sort of thing. So I imagine you'd be pretty interested in that too.
Yeah, I'll probably try to attend that talk. It's been since I was doing Intel on a daily basis, since I really, really looked at it hard. But yeah, I'm always sort of, academically interested in that stuff, and just generally as a human being interested in like organized crime, as I'm sure you are as well. And like, obsessed
I
with,
am. Yeah.
all movies about it. Yeah. I mean, you were tweeting about watching Heat yesterday. So I literally I watched Pulp Fiction last night. So
hell yeah.
This is this is an obsession that reaches outside of my work life.
And I'm also just fascinated by how those groups organize themselves. Like, how do they find each other? You mentioned Heat, Brian. How did those guys originally find each other? I think in the backstory in Heat, they found each other in prison. Like they all knew each other, met each other in prison or whatever. But in a cybercrime group, most of these people probably don't even know each other in real life. I would say almost, very rarely do they. And they are probably geographically dispersed. So how they actually find someone that they think they can trust to bring into this business is kind of a fascinating, sociological idea.
Yeah, I always kind of assume, and I don't know if there's any evidence for this, but I always kind of assume there's like real world organized crime above.
Probably.
And then beneath that are like the random hacker people that, don't necessarily know one another, definitely did not meet in prison.
But they might meet again there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the session will talk a lot about kind of the psychological, like they mentioned they'll talk about the friendships, which is funny, but then also like the mentorships. So just like the relationships. Yeah, you know what? Friendship. I like it.
It's true. Look, you got to learn from somebody.
Yeah.
And if you're going to go on vacation, you're going to go with your boys from, ransomware gang. You're going to go to Santorini or whatever. You got to have somebody to hang out with.
Yeah, don't go to Santorini. That's how you end up in jail.
That's how you get arrested. That's right. Yeah. You got to go to a non-extradition country.
Yeah. But that did stick out to me, like that relationship piece of it stuck out to me because, that's obviously a string that the US government and other governments have been trying to pull, being like, we'll offer up these massive, rewards if you send us information about that, about different people and members in these groups. So, how loyal are these people to each other, and what is the level of kind of commitment that they have there?
I don't think they're very loyal, based on like my limited understanding of how cybercrime forums work. Like they seem to turn on each other really quickly. Like
forums are just dog eat dog. It's like when we had like a dark web team when I was on doing Intel, and like a lot of what we would see in those forums, like customers would be like, see if they're talking about us, and it's like they don't talk about, like, they're not like, let's go hack this bank. They're just like arguing with each other and doxing each other and stuff like
Gossip fest, yeah.
Yeah, it's literally like Mean Girls, but with cybercrime groups,
computer nerds.
Right? Yeah, totally. They just want to like go ride jet skis in the Mediterranean and get cool cars to post pictures on Instagram with like stacks of cash on the hood.
It's very relatable.
It is. All right, Brian, what do you got?
So another one that's not at all relevant. Well, I guess it's kind of relevant, but I want to go to this modern anti-abuse mechanisms in competitive video games talk. And the
All right.
reason is like I feel like we need to pay more attention to what's going on in like the video game hacking space. And for one reason is like the controls that these game developers put in place to try and prevent hacking are like extremely draconian. I don't do computer video gaming because of that. Because it's like, oh, you want to play Call of Duty online? Like, install this rootkit, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that. And then on the other side, I feel like the people who are hacking these things, I don't know what the crossover is between these gaming crews and these hacker crews. My guess is that there's no crossover, but it like seemed like a breeding ground for people who could flip to cybercrime like really readily by like after developing all these techniques for cheating in video games, when like these very, very wealthy video game studios like want nothing more than to prevent you from doing that.
That's a really
That
good
looks
point.
fascinating to me. That whole world, you're right, Brian, is adjacent but doesn't really overlap, I don't think, with like the infosec world, even though a huge portion of the infosec community plays video games. Like there's there's stuff at DEF CON like completely dedicated to the video game world. And it reminds me of like the early days of like the DMCA in the early 2000s, when a lot of hackers were like very easily getting around DMCA restrictions on, say, software or video games or things like that, or DVDs, and showing just how stupid this whole idea was. So I think you're right that like the skills certainly overlap. I don't know if the groups themselves do, but the mentality certainly overlaps.
Yeah.
All right. So last one for me that I'm definitely interested in is let me see. Oh, from the Office of the CISO: Smarter, Faster, Stronger Security in the Age of AI, which, the title itself doesn't really intrigue me, but the two speakers do. It's Ann Johnson and Sherrod DeGrippo from Microsoft. I don't know Ann personally. Lindsey, I know you know Sherrod pretty well. They both seem extremely smart to me, and this looks like a fascinating talk. And I'm really actually am interested in hearing non, corporate mouthpiece people talk about how AI is being used inside Microsoft and how they're thinking about the way that adversaries use it too.
Yeah, that looked pretty good.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that as well. We've done a lot of writing about like the ways that adversaries might use AI. So I'm always curious to hear like other people's thoughts. I mean, it's like kind of inherently hot takey, I guess, from anyone other than maybe Microsoft, because Microsoft might have, the global visibility to actually understand with real evidence how this stuff's getting used. Whereas for us, it's like, maybe they'll use it to change from Python to something else, or, maybe they'll use it to change this little bit of this malware. So yeah, if I can get to that one, I will try to go to it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sherrod's really good. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
she's a friend of the podcast, very smart, and says what she thinks. She will not be up there like spouting any corporate marketing. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's nice. I always like when a panel has kind of the CISO like / business point of view, and then someone who's more in the trenches of like security research and kind of has that perspective as well.
Yep. All right. Should we shift to some sessions that we probably have no idea what they're about?
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
Lindsey, what's first on your list?
Okay. So one that I had was reinforcement learning for autonomous, resilient cyber defense.
That one's a little word soupy.
Yep, it is.
It was both vague but specific, is what I would say.
It's the way that like in movies, con men tell each other how, like, you want to be memorable, but you want them to forget you as soon as you walk away. Like that sort of thing. Like, I know what all those words mean, but when you put them in that order, I don't know what you mean. Yeah.
Yes.
Who's the speaker?
So it looks like it was one of the ones where there's a lot of different contributors.
Yeah,
I think there were about
a bunch of those
from a contributor. from a paper.
I
Yeah.
assumed those were all academic papers that they're just going to go up there and like read, like that time even Christic went up and just read the secure enclave processors. Like white
I was
papers
thinking about that yesterday.
from Apple.
It took no questions and just
Yeah.
left. It's amazing. Just such a like absolute power move. It's just
Yeah.
like, this is on the internet, but I'm going to read it to you right now in this auditorium, and then I'm leaving.
Yeah,
That's
I loved it.
Mic drop.
It was pretty funny. Yeah.
But it looks like the two speakers are from DSTL's Autonomous Resilient Cyber Defense Program. It's Sarah Farmer and Ian Miles.
Okay. Don't know what that is,
Yes.
but good for them.
Yes.
All right, Donohue.
I refused to Google any of this stuff because I didn't want to make it seem like I know things that I don't know. So
Good.
arbitrary data manipulation and leakage with CPU 0-day bugs on RISC-V.
Yeah, I looked at that.
My first thought was I'm out on any talk with leakage in the title.
Yes.
I love the that there's just no description.
There's no description for that one. So I also challenged myself to not look at the descriptions as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just try and judge them on the merits of their title.
I have a feel that sounds like one of those side channel attacks on processors that break all of our brains whenever a new one comes out, Spectre, whatever those things are. And you're just like, all right, I'll take your word for it that this is important. But I always, I don't know, it was maybe the last time one of those came out a few months ago. Somebody said, has anybody ever heard of one of these being exploited in the wild? And everybody was like, nope, not once, literally never seen it. It's very cool, awesome research, but I've never heard of a single incident.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will say, if anything is being presented by Daniel Gross, I will definitely watch that because he has done a lot of good work with kind of speculative execution type vectors. But yeah, for the most part, I think it's one of those things where you're like, so how could you actually do this? That's none
of my business, honestly.
I was able to make sense of speculative execution. Like it kind of makes sense, sort of like it just is a sensible thing, right? Like the chips are trying to be fast, so they kind of guess what they should do. Side channel attacks, like no idea. When I see that word, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I don't have any chance of figuring it out.
No, Joe Grand explained it to me a few years ago, and I just nodded. I was like, "Cool, man." Still don't get it. Yeah, I'm glad you do, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Let's go for a run. All right, here's one that and this kind of hurts my heart to say this, but from HAL to HALT, thwarting Skynet siblings in the Gen AI coding era. So the speaker is my friend Chris Wysopal. So I know this will be good. I just don't know what any of that means. First of all, I've never seen. Is that 2001?
Yeah,
okay.
HAL's the robot in that.
I've never seen it.
To Chris Wysopal, I didn't include that on there, and because I was like, I think I know what HAL is, and maybe HALT just means stop.
And I know that Skynet is the thing in the Terminator, right? That's the sentient computer network. Yeah, right. I've seen those movies. I've never seen 2001, which is like, I'm not a sci-fi person, but I guess that's a hole in my movie resume. I guess I should probably see it at some point.
It's pretty glaring. It's one of the greatest movies ever made.
You need to go watch it right after this podcast.
Yeah, well, isn't it like 9 hours long, Brian?
It's long. It's not 9 hours long, and it is brutally paced.
Oh, great. Isn't there a lot of like the guy talking to the computer and trying to get it to do what he wants it to do or something like that? Yeah,
the computer's not having it.
Okay.
Sounds familiar.
Also, like, he sings a song, a really creepy song to him at one point. It's a wild ride, that movie. I
don't like public performances, so I don't know that I'll enjoy that. Like dance recitals, plays, can't do it. No. I know I love Chris, so I know it'll be good, but I don't know. I really have no idea. Skynet siblings sounds terrifying. We're getting pretty close, honestly.
Yeah, I hope not.
I don't know. We're getting real close. Like there's, within 50 feet of me, there's like 40 autonomous devices, so they can do things on their own. So
true.
I know. All right, Lindsey, what else do you have?
Okay, this is actually one that looked kind of interesting, but I think the title just the acronym hell of the title threw me off, but OVPNX 40 days leading to RCE, LPE, and KCE via BYOVD, affecting millions of open VPN endpoints across the globe.
Oh my God. I'm so mad at myself that I know exactly what all of those
I
acronyms
know. Me too. I looked at that one and I was like, I should add this, but I actually know what all of this is talking about.
Me
So
too.
I'm not going to.
That is one of the ones where if you were going to if you just started cybersecurity, you're going to Black Hat for the first time, you're like, okay, I can't with this. Like, I don't know what this is.
No.
But yes.
I used to worry when I was writing for Threat Post, like I would get like halfway through writing a story based on some research paper that had all that sort of stuff in there. And I would have this moment of uncertainty. Like, what if someone just made all this shit up to trick people like me? And then I'm going to publish this and I'm just going to be made fun of by literally everyone on Twitter.
I know.
Someone's going to do that someday.
I believe it's happened once or twice.
It has been done. Maybe not in cybersecurity, but definitely in academic research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you. Like, that does sound interesting, Linz, but that is a whole lot of acronyms. Yeah.
Well, it's very, very topical considering all of the crazy VPN bugs that have wreaked havoc this year and every other year since the invention of VPNs.
VPNs are a problem.
Yeah. It looks good.
It always cracks me up, like when I'm watching some random European golf tournament or something, and there's like a commercial for some wild VPN service that you've never heard of. How do you have enough money to buy time on, Sky Sports or whatever? I think I know the answer, but I don't really like it.
Let's sketch. Yeah.
All right, Donohue, what's next?
So let's go with light beams and light streams, letting hackers go pew pew, building affordable light-based hardware security tooling. My note on this is simply, what? I feel like it's one of those things about like light, the effects that light can have on sort of like really low level hardware, which you read research about this every couple of years, and it's basically the same as like when you read about side channel and bit flipping stuff, where you're just like, this is just something that I'm never going to understand.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Yeah. Go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like it's going to be one of those things where they're explaining to you that light is a stream, but also is made up of packets, like, like information on the internet. And there's going to be all kinds of like science involved that, I sit down in the back row and then I leave 4 minutes later because I'm like, nope, don't understand.
Yeah,
I've done that to dozens of Black Hat talks.
Absolutely.
Just sit down and be like, this is not for me. Just get up and walk away.
Yep. Let me look at this little schedule.
You can see like people just leaving slowly, just shaking their heads.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I've seen those types of things crop up over the past few years, like once in a while. And there was one in like, 5 or so years ago that was like, here's how you can like hack Alexa or like Siri with, smart speakers with like laser light beams. And it just like the research is so dense that you have to really every single paragraph, like reread it like 5 times. So, yeah.
There's a reason that like I topped out at high school physics, I'm not trying to do advanced Goodwill Hunting type science over here. I guess that was math, but it's all the same. Okay. This is for you, obviously, Donohue. Nope. Still not secure. Stealing private keys from S7 PLCs. And this is sort of the sequel to the talk. It's not the same speaker. It's several speakers, and Carson Knoll is not on this, but this is the sequel to that talk you went to in probably 2013 or something, Brian, or 2012, talking about S7 systems and, what an absolute dumpster fire they are, which I believe is still the case. If you want to look up the security model of those things, actually don't do it. It'll just terrify you.
Yeah, there was a 60 Minutes about it years ago that I think actually had Carson Knoll on it. And I remember watching it and being like, this is kind of underselling his point because he's trying to make it for a general audience. But like, yeah, I have blacked out so much of what that all even means and what the implications of it and how widespread it is. Like, I just can't think about it because of that talk that Carson Knoll gave.
Yeah, I mean, the basic gist is that the global telecommunication system is just literally an open network, and you're
Good
screwed.
luck.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I guess it's a point that Ed Snowden made at some point too. But
We'll blank out his name for
yeah,
the final recording.
yeah, sorry.
Redacted.
Yep. All right. How about one more from each of us? Go ahead, Linz.
Um, I I guess an honorable mention one, but OPS, oops, it is JTAG's fault. Journey to unlocking automotive grade IC. I don't know, just
What
the
is IP?
SP5 automotive chip angle. It just is seems very technical. I think that's one where I'd have to really like understand the context going in there.
I think I'd literally have to be sitting next to Charlie Miller to have any chance of understanding that talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen these words in places. JTAG is like oh man. I I'd have to Google it to get the words right. But that one I looked at and I was like, okay, I kind of get what they're on about, but there's no way I'll understand it when I go in there. I do think I'll add this bit of knowledge. I believe, and I could be wrong, that IC maybe stands for integrated circuit.
I think you're right. That's the only thing that came to mind, either that or intelligence community, and that doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, that's what I first thought, and then I was like, no, it can't be that. But yeah, I had seen JTAG before reading something and looked it up, and some sort of like format for car things. But yeah, that one I'm not gonna have any idea what's going on in that talk for sure.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah. I think JTAG, I'm just looking at the description here, but it's the standard interface for IC testing.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a debugging interface essentially on a lot of hardware.
Yeah,
Joe Graham built a little tool for it years ago.
I don't like to think about the car hacking stuff. I just like to assume that my car, like when I hit the brakes, it will stop. As long as it does that, then
You certainly
good.
need brakes on your car, Brian. That's for sure. All right. What's one more from you, Brian?
So there's a lot of really ridiculous ones. Like we could talk about this option round one or these side channel or bit flipping ones, but I'm gonna go with one that where I just have been staring at one word in the title, trying to figure out what it means, which is unraveling the mind behind the APT, analyzing the role of pretexting in CTI and attribution. Like I've just been staring at the word pretexting, being like, what on earth do they mean in this context with that word?
So pretexting is one of the things that like social engineers or actual criminals use when they develop like the story that they're going to use to as a lure for their
Okay.
victim. So if you're one of those people that's doing like the phone scams where you call up and pretend you're from Bank of America or whatever, the pretext is why you're calling. We detected unusual activity on your account. Please give me your phone pin to help me unravel that or whatever. So if you go and look at all the stuff that like Rachel Toback does,
Okay.
she talks about that all the time. So yeah, it's just like the story essentially. Yeah. But that actually sounds cool. I would
Yeah,
kind of,
actually, now that you've mentioned it, I might be interested in that.
yeah,
Might have to
it's kind of your world.
might have to raise that up into the talks I might attend section.
Yeah. You like messing with people's minds. That would be good for you.
yeah. And I think it's a Mandiant researcher giving the talk.
Oh,
So good
that would be cool
perspective
then. Yeah. They know what they're talking about. All right. The last one for me is it's another, well, yeah. I understand these words, but I don't really know what they mean in this context. From weapon to target, quantum computers paradox. I don't like the whole idea of quantum physics or quantum computers really just breaks my mind. I understand it in the broadest possible sense, but I don't understand like what quantum computing is going to do to cryptography and security. I mean, I do in general terms, like it's going to be able to solve those equations much faster and break existing encryption keys and things like that. But the whole idea of two things being in the same state in two different states at one time is just, literally cannot get my brain to hold that thought.
Yeah, I feel like quantum computing is something that they've been talking about as being a technology that's right around the corner for the last like
Yeah.
20 years, and I'm just like,
Yep.
wake me up when this is a real thing. And I might be showing my extreme ignorance because for all I know, it could already be a real thing. But I don't go to the quantum computing stuff because I know that they're going to break my brain in the first 10 minutes of the talk.
I do think it is real in some limited respects. And I know that NSA and other people are working on post-quantum cryptography, but I don't really know the details of it. And it's none of my business. Like,
I assume there's some quantum computer stored deep somewhere inside Fort Meade.
Probably pretty close to you, Brian. Probably.
Yeah. That's one of those sessions where the description didn't really clear things up for me.
Oh, no.
That much. Yeah.
Certainly not. No, not even close. All right. Well, that's a whole bunch of sessions. Some we're going to see, some we are absolutely not going to see. But like you said, Brian, one of the good things about Black Hat is it's pretty focused and concentrated. So if you get into a talk and you realize you don't understand what they're talking about, or you want to go see something else, you can just walk across the hall. Yeah. And there's none of that like line up and reserve your seat like there is at RSA, where, here's the standby line that's already 90 people long. No, you can just go. So
and it's also like it's all in the same building.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like, wait, what the hell? Where is this room? And you're like, in the basement of the Marriott? What is going on here?
Yep.
It's like on the 7th floor of Moscone.
If you get bored, you can just go down to the aquarium at the bottom of Mandalay and look at some sharks and stuff, which is cool.
There's an aquarium down there?
Hell yeah. How do you not know that? Come on.
Because it's been years since I've gone there. And when I'm there, it's like, go to an aquarium. Why would I do that when I can lose a bunch of money playing blackjack?
You can do both. There's time for everything, Brian.
That's true.
All right, cool. Well, I'll see you guys out there in a few days. Good talking to you. See you in Vegas.
Yeah, see you there. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.